Hey everybody, Roxabox90 here with an informational video explaining what's the big deal with the Onslaught Fetchlands being reprinted in the coming Khans of Tarkir set. And this is really for newer players, but for older players who maybe don't fully understand what's the big deal with Fetchlands, we're going to go through the main purposes of what Fetchlands do, maybe what they don't do even though people think they do, and what's the big deal about them coming back and being reprinted. What is a Fetchland? The Fetchlands are these 5 are the original Onslaught, and then they have 5 Zendikar ones, and what they do is you tap to pay 1 life, sacrifice the land, to search your library for a plains or island card and put into play, then shuffle your library. Okay, so what it does effectively is you use it to go search up a land that you need. So let's say you have in your hand, you have certain colors that you need, multicolor particularly, multicolor, so you have a lot of green in your hand, but you need to make sure you have a mountain. Well, you can sacrifice a Fetchland to go get a forest. That's the very basics, searching for basic. Most players, and most of the time, they're used to go find the dual lands. The dual lands that count as other kinds of lands. For example, the shock lands, they have land, they're an island mountain, or a swamp forest, or a swamp mountain, which means that they count as either basic type. And since they are an island card and a mountain card, the Fetchlands are able to go, for example, ones that search for mountains, or one that search for islands, can go and search up for the shockland that has island or mountain, and the Fetchland can go grab it from your deck and put it into play. And this is great because it allows you to get the colors you need to play out your deck most effectively. Very useful, being able to search for any colors you need. But they're far more complicated than that, and that's the very basic element of what they do. Far more important is the question of, well, why are they so expensive then? Because all they're really doing for me is getting my $15 shocklands. So why would my Fetchlands be $70 a piece? Good question. And the reason why the reprint bringing down the price is so important is because they are so fundamentally necessary. And this is, you can see, if you go look at even a red deck, mono red deck in Modern will run, well, at least a capitalized one will run 4 to 8 Fetchlands. I'm sure you're asking, you just told me they search for my dual lands to help me fix my colors. Why would I need them in a deck that's all red? Why don't I just run more mountains? What's the big deal? Interesting. Very interesting question. And this is important because people have done mathematical experiments trying to figure out the point of this. And the argument made is that it thins your deck, which means you tap the Fetchland to search your deck for a card, you pull out that card and put into play. So now you've used a Fetchland and you've pulled a basic. You've pulled 2 cards out of your deck, which means your deck now has fewer cards in it in total, allowing you odds of drawing the next card being the card you need are higher. And the more Fetchlands you use, the more lands you pull out of your deck, the more total cards are pulled out of the deck, allowing you to draw non-land cards that you need. That's the idea. This experiment that was done by Garrett Johnson says that you can't really see the impact so much of this filter option on the deck. And yet, it is still there, however small, and it's because of its existence, there's a good reason to use it. You can read through this full article. It's very interesting, the discussion he makes. So deck thinning is really important. Being able to search your colors is really important. Also, realize that these lands are instant speed. You don't have to do this on your turn, and usually the biggest mistake someone makes is they play it, tap it, sacrifice it right away. No! That's not the point, is to go immediately grab a land, because they give you something that almost nothing in Magic does. They give you a way to shuffle your deck on demand at any time. This is extremely important. In Legacy, this happens, for example, after Brainstorm. You draw 3 cards, and then you put 2 cards you don't want from your hand back on top of your deck, tap your Fetchland, sacrifice it, search your deck for the land, put it into play, shuffle your deck, and you get new cards on top of your deck. This is really, really important, being able to put away stuff you don't need and get new stuff. Shuffling your deck, if you know the top cards of your deck, in Commander, for example, using Sensei's Divining Top, if you know the top 3 cards of your deck are all horrible, you want to be able to search it away. And so, that is something Fetchlands allow you to do for simply 1 life. That's very, very important, being able to shuffle your deck at any time on demand. And that's why most of the time if you watch pros playing, they'll leave a fetch land out. But usually they'd play one if they don't need it immediately. They won't use it immediately. They'll hold on to it until they need to shuffle their deck, and then they'll use it as a way to shuffle their deck. That's really a huge important deal. And the final point of why fetchlands are so important is they fill your graveyard. And you'll see this in Modern all the time. Cards like Tarmogoyf, which relies on the number of card types among cards in all graveyards. When you use a fetch land, you replace the fetch land with a new land, hopefully untapped, into play, and then you pump up your Tarmogoyf by 1, which is very useful. It also just has something in your graveyard if you're using, for example, the new mechanic or the bringing back mechanic that they're putting in cons of Tarkir called Delve. Delve would allow you to use the now graveyard-filled fetch lands, be able to feed them into your Delve cards. Using your graveyard, filling your graveyard, is very important and does see play with a number of archetypes in multiple formats. And so let's quickly recap, what do fetches do for the game, and why are they so valuable and important that they're being reprinted and the price being driven down? They're used in tons of decks. They fetch your multicolored lands, your duels or your shocks. They thin your deck, however small they do, but they do some thinning. They shuffle up your deck on demand, and they fill your graveyard. And these are all things that you should keep in mind when you are considering the fetch lands. If you pull fetches in your Tarkir pre-release, if you pull fetches in general, do not value these cards at nothing because you don't know what they do. Hopefully this video gives you a little bit of insight of how important they are, especially to more professional players and to players who play competitively. And so you shouldn't undervalue your lands. Make sure that you consider them at the true value that they are. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please tap that like button, and if you're new to the channel, check in and subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section, and let me know your thoughts about the fetch lands coming back. As always, Roxabox90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.